The room buzzed with clinking glasses, the suffocating scent of expensive perfume, and laughter so fake it made my skin crawl. Not a single soul in this lavish birthday celebration felt like family. I stood near the cake, a sad to tear disaster with plastic frosting flowers that looked like they'd been bought at a dollar store. It bore my name, Natalie, but no love, just decoration, a performance. My mother had taken full credit for this charade, pretending she'd planned it all. She hadn't. She didn't even remember my birthday last year. I was 22 now. Uncle Mike sidled up, his breath reeking of whiskey, grinning like a hyena. Getting old, Nat. Got a real job yet? Or still pretending to be a writer? My jaw clenched. I forced a thin smile. Still pretending, just like you're pretending. You still have hair. His laugh barked out, but I saw the flicker of irritation. You've got your mother's sharp mouth, he said. Mom, standing nearby in a tight beige dress and diamond earrings she could never afford, shot me a warning glare. Be polite. This party isn't just about you. Your grandfather is here. I bit my tongue. Grandpa Elias. The only reason anyone in this room was behaving. The only person who ever truly saw me not as a failure, not as a burden, but as family. He entered the room the way he always did, quietly, yet every head turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even my father, who never bowed to anyone, stood straighter. Grandpa Elias didn't need to shout. His silence made people sweat. He walked toward me slowly, that unreadable smile on his face. Natalie, he said, placing a firm hand on my shoulder. Happy birthday, sweetheart. Thank you, Grandpa, I whispered, my voice cracking. Then he leaned in, voice soft. Is the apartment comfortable? I froze. What apartment? The music still played soft jazz, but it felt like it had faded into nothing. My mother's glass trembled. My father shifted, avoiding Grandpa's gaze. Grandpa straightened, turning slowly toward them. Then where? He asked. Did the money go? The room went dead silent. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. I thought we were waiting, Dad stammered, eyes darting. You said I said nothing. Grandpa cut him off. I wired the money 3 months ago. Full down payment. I told you to have her moved in before her birthday. I stared at them, my stomach twisting. I never heard anything about it, I said, heart pounding. I still live in the basement. The words came out more vulnerable than I wanted, but it was the truth. Mom stepped forward. She never told us she wanted to move out. She's been unstable lately. Unstable? I repeated, voice sharp. She fights with her sister. She barely talks to us, she continued, voice rising. And she didn't need an apartment. We thought it was better to hold on to the money, just in case Grandpa raised one hand. She fell silent, like a puppet with its strings cut. I gave you one instruction, he said calmly. Make sure she had her own space. You too. Promise me she'd get the apartment. We were going to, Dad said, desperate. But things got busy. And don't, Grandpa said, his voice suddenly dangerous, insult my intelligence. A few relatives slipped away, pretending to examine the buffet or the patio view. Grandpa turned to me. Do you want to leave? I blinked. What? He looked at me with eyes that hadn't softened in decades. You shouldn't spend one more night in that house. Mom gasped. Wait, Elias, he snapped. I'm done waiting. You've treated her like she's disposable. And now you're about to find out what disposable feels like. And just like that, he pulled out his phone. Grandpa Elias never raised his voice. But when he spoke, the world adjusted its volume. He tapped the screen, held it to his ear. David, get the keys ready. I'm bringing her tonight. Mom trembled. Wait, Dad. What are you doing? You can't just. This is a misunderstanding. You misunderstood my patience, he said coldly. Everyone in the room wore the same face, frozen fear. The party wasn't a party anymore. It was a funeral, for the reputation my parents had spent decades building. I stood there, stunned. Grandpa, what's going on? He looked me in the eye. I bought you a 2-bedroom apartment in Lakeside Heights, paid up front, fully furnished, security, garden view, private parking. It was yours the moment I wired the money. I felt sick, and they never told me. He turned to my dad. They didn't. Dad's face turned red. We were going to surprise her. With what? Grandpa's voice cracked like a whip. The apartment she never saw? The money you spent? He let the words hang like a guillotine. My heart raced. You gave? How much? He looked at me slowly. 320,000. A knife in my chest. I asked them to keep the rest for your college loans and emergency fund. Turns out the emergency is now. Mom's hands trembled. We had expenses. Business was slow. Your son lost his job. You were stealing from your own daughter. He said simply. The room gasped. A few ants retreated like ants fleeing light. My sister Amanda slipped behind the kitchen island, her phone clearly recording. Grandpa noticed. You can send that to the lawyer too, Amanda. It'll save time. Dad stepped forward. Okay, let's calm down. It's a family issue. We can work it out. You mean cover it up? Grandpa replied, turning toward the door. Natalie, go grab your bag. I didn't move. You're not staying here another night, he said, walking straight to me. You'll come with me. First thing tomorrow, you'll see what was supposed to be yours. But my clothes, my stuff. He placed a hand on my back. We'll buy new things. I'm done watching them pretend to be parents. Mom gasped again. You don't mean that. Oh, I mean every word, he said. My hands trembled as I walked toward the door. My parents said nothing. No begging. No apologies. They only watched like losing me wasn't their fear. Being exposed was. I paused at the door. You took my future and called it your backup plan. You buried me under this roof like I was a failure. You made me think I wasn't worth anything. Dad looked away. Mom's lips moved, but no words came. Grandpa opened the front door. You were never the problem, Natalie. They just didn't want to let you become something they couldn't control. The elevator doors closed. And just like that, I left behind my birthday, my family, and every lie they'd ever told, unaware this was only the beginning. Because what I would discover inside that apartment would rip open a secret they were willing to bury me for. The apartment didn't just exist, it gleamed. Tall ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows, soft beige furniture, marble counters, a balcony, overlooking a private courtyard with a fountain that looked like something out of a painting. It didn't feel like a place to live. It felt like a place you had to earn. And somehow, it had always been mine. Welcome home, Grandpa said, handing me the key card. I clutched it like it was my soul. I don't understand. Why would they hide this from me? He exhaled slowly, sitting on the cream sofa, removing his watch like this was just another Tuesday. Because your parents are drowning in debt. Your father took out 3 lines of credit last year. Your mother defaulted on her boutique loan 2 months ago. I knew they were desperate, but I gave them a chance. I trusted them with your future. My throat tightened, but they always said they were doing fine. He gave me a look. Your parents are actors, Natalie. Not the professional kind, the survival kind. They perform comfort, success, control, all smoke and mirrors. And you? Unfortunately, you were their best kept hostage. It hit me like a cold slap. I was never going to get the apartment, I whispered. They were never going to tell me. Grandpa's voice softened. Because they don't see you as a person. They see you as a wallet. I looked up, shaken. Not today, he said. Not anymore. He stood, walked into the hallway, and returned with a man in a blazer and glasses. This is James, Grandpa said. My attorney. James nodded. Miss Natalie, you'll want to sit down. I did, though my legs were barely working. Grandpa leaned forward. When your grandmother passed, she left behind a trust. Not just for your education, for you personally. It was meant to be available the moment you turned 21. I stared at him. But I never got anything. Because your father intercepted it. James opened a file, handed me a sheet, a signature, a forged letter of request. It wasn't mine, but it was close. I never signed this. I know, Grandpa said calmly. We're filing charges. My breath caught. I didn't want to believe it that my own son would do this to his daughter, but I had my doubts. So we waited, watched, collected evidence. I stared at the numbers. The trust fund had nearly $850,000, most of it gone. Tears stung my eyes, not from sadness, from fury. All this time I thought I was a burden, I said. They told me I needed to sacrifice, to be grateful for whatever they gave me, that I wasn't mature enough to handle money. James nodded. Because money would have given you freedom. They couldn't afford that. My chest burned. What happens now? Grandpa stood slowly, deliberately. Now we put everything on the table. All of it. We go to war. But they're my parents. They stopped being your parents the moment they stole your voice. Now, you'll speak for yourself. I looked at the folder. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about everything they'd stolen: my independence, my dignity, my self-worth. And I was getting it all back. By morning, Grandpa had filed motions in court of financial freeze, legal notices, the beginning of the storm. And the house I grew up in, it would be the first to go. The courtroom buzzed with tension, the kind that sits under your skin. My parents sat across from me, flanked by a sweaty lawyer in a wrinkled suit who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Mom wore her pearls like armor. Dad sat with arms folded, jaw locked, daring the world to challenge him. But beside me sat Elias Ford, my grandfather, calm, prepared, relentless. I clutched the forged letter. The judge looked over her glasses. Let's be clear, the trust fund was intended solely for Miss Ford. Yes, Your Honor, James replied. Structured to activate on her 21st birthday. She's now 22. The funds were accessed months ago without her consent by these two individuals. My father stood abruptly. We didn't steal anything. She's our daughter. We were protecting her. From what? I cut in, my voice steady for the first time in years. He turned, surprised. From being independent? From knowing the truth? From having options? His eyes darkened. You think money makes you mature? Makes you better than us? I leaned forward. I think lying to your child, forging documents, and draining her future makes you a criminal. Mom gasped. Natalie, how can you know? I snapped. You don't get to call me ungrateful. You sold off my future and smiled while doing it. The judge raised her hand. James laid out the evidence, the forged document, the spending trail, withdrawals, transfers, credit card statements in my name I'd never seen. They used me like an ATM, and now they were exposed. I want to press charges, I said, standing. They didn't just steal money. They took years of my life, my confidence, my peace. The room fell silent. Even my father's shoulders dropped. Grandpa put a hand on my back. That's my girl. The judge leaned back. Temporary freeze on the defendant's assets. Full audit. Criminal charges under consideration. Mom covered her face. Dad didn't move. As the bailiff called recess, they looked smaller than I'd ever seen them. I stepped into the hallway. James followed. You okay? No, I said truthfully. But I will be. Because this wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. Everything they tried to bury, my voice, my rights, my life, I was digging it all back up. That night, I sat in my apartment, eating dinner with the man who saw me. Do you know why I waited? He asked. Why? Because the best kind of power is the kind you earn, not what you're handed. And today, you showed me you've earned every damn piece of your life back. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I never want to be that girl again. The one who begged for crumbs from people who never intended to feed her. You're not, he said. That girl died the day you stood up and said no more. And in that silence, something new was born, a woman. 3 months later, the court settlement came, and so did the headlines. Empire of deceit, parents charged in daughter's inheritance heist. The news spread like wildfire. People who once whispered behind my back now flooded my inbox with I had no idea and if you ever want to talk. I didn't reply to a single one. The judge awarded me full restitution, every cent, with interest. Property bought with my name was seized. My parents were banned from handling any family trust funds. My father lost his business. My mother, the queen of image, vanished from social media. But I didn't gloat. I moved not physically, but spiritually, emotionally, permanently. With Grandpa's help, I launched the Unheard Foundation to support young adults financially controlled or abused by their families. Legal help, counseling, grants, real change. And the first person I hired, Amanda, the sister who recorded the chaos, now helped me change lives. She wasn't innocent, but she apologized. I saw the fear in her eyes, the fear I once wore. She didn't want to end up like them. I wouldn't let her. The day they came back was unforgettable. A knock. James opened the door. You have visitors. I looked up. My parents stood in the hallway, thinner, older, defeated. Natalie, Mom whispered. Can we talk? Dad said nothing, just stared at the floor. I stood, heart steady. You're not supposed to be here. I know, she said, but we lost everything. We have nowhere else. I nodded slowly. You had everything. You used me like a bank account. We were scared, she choked. Your father was spiraling. The loans, the business. We thought it was temporary. But you made it permanent, I said, voice cracking. You broke me. Dad looked up. We didn't mean to, but you did. They stood there expecting mercy, a hug, redemption. I stepped back. I forgive you, I said. Mom gasped. but that doesn't mean I want you in my life. Forgiveness isn't permission. It's not an invitation. Dad's jaw tightened, said nothing. Grandpa appeared behind me firm as stone. Leave now. They hesitated. I said, leave, and they did. That night, I sat with Grandpa on the balcony. The city lights blinked below. You handled that better than I ever could have, he said. I nodded, tired, but whole. I'm not angry anymore. Good, he said. Anger fades, but strength doesn't. He raised his glass. To Natalie Ford, the girl they underestimated, the woman they'll never forget. I smiled for real this time. To taking everything back.